was a cool and gray, wintry morning, typical of London summers. The English sun, peeking through the leaden clouds, slowly brightened the pallid pavements. Slumbering streets began to stir. The stores were not yet open, but the cafes were. A long day of shopping, museums, and sightseeing awaited the hordes of tourists, and a hearty breakfast caffeinates spending. For local vendors, breakfast for visitors really is the most important meal of the day. Allison and I, my wife, sat in one of our favorite cafes near the hotel. We were passing through for the weekend on our way home from Europe this summer. We stop in London every chance we get, first to visit our daughter who joined us for breakfast, and second, to reawaken fond memories from our salad days when we were green in judgment and our futures beckoned. As you would expect, much has changed in the 4 decades since we were students here. In some ways, London is much better. In others, much worse. I was ruminating about the hostility this city has developed towards Israel since I chaired the Israel Students Association of the London School of Economics back in the 1980s. Protesters now fill the streets on a regular basis, expressing vile hatred for our people. The media, never friendly, is especially hostile. Loathsome politicians rile up the masses. 4 candidates won seats in the UK's recent elections primarily on the basis of their anti-Israel stance. Our Jewish friends are more worried than ever before. And then I can't help myself, even on vacation, in a week intended to disconnect from this most horrible year. My mind keeps taking me back to the throbbing pain that dominates so many of my waking moments. The body looks strong. The soul bleeds. As I was ruminating, in walked a group of 4 Israeli tourists, a female adult and 3 teenage girls, speaking Hebrew, acting totally Israeli, if you know what I mean, and showing no particular anxiety. I assumed that 2 of the girls were sisters and 1 was a friend. Of course, I don't know for sure, but the woman, she appeared to me in her early 40s. She had the look of a mother. That protective watchfulness, part primal, part heavenly, that is the nature of motherhood. The girls were on the cusp of sprouting wings. They had that pubescent look of not yet fully realizing how beautiful they would soon be. The unique joy that youth and innocence bequeath to those who are about to become swans filled the cafe. The girls were doing what teenagers do, babbling, chattering, and yabbering, but the music of their voices sounded to me like the music of the spheres. They were constantly texting. I don't know with whom, perhaps friends in Israel who wanted to see pictures of the cheese toast they ordered. It was with ham, by the way, I noticed that. Maybe they were texting each other because teenagers think it's perfectly normal to text someone who is sitting 6 inches from you. I couldn't take my eyes off this family for reasons I'll share momentarily. I tried to be innocuous. I tried to only peek at them from time to time when I thought they weren't noticing. We've all done that, right? Maybe spotting a celebrity in a restaurant, or even rabbis. I've had that happen to me this year. Person glancing at me all evening, thinking that I didn't notice, finally mustering the courage to ask me whether I'm the same rabbi whose sermons they watch in California. My wife and daughter admonished me. They whispered to me that these Israelis were noticing that I was looking at them. And they would assume at best that I was some kind of freak. Or worse, an Israel hater. The kind of people you encounter more frequently nowadays in London. The reason I couldn't look away is that the sight of these Israelis reawakened two powerful emotions that have dominated my year since October 7th. First, a kind of primordial rage, sulfurous anger I struggle to control. It can appear out of nowhere, triggered by seemingly innocuous scenes like 3 Israeli teenagers and a mother walking into a London cafe on a wintry summer day. Look at what those barbarians wrought. Beautiful girls like these were slaughtered, gunned down in a hail of bullets as if the murderers were shooting flowers. Adolescents like these were kidnapped. Mothers like this and fathers were executed in front of their children's eyes. Whole families were burned alive in their homes. Teenagers like these were raped in the fields, some of them while still alive. Others, their corpses gruesomely defiled. Men were raped too. My eyes welled up as I imagined these girls sitting in a dungeon or some apartment complex in Gaza, surrounded by terrorists guarding them day and night, abusing them physically and emotionally. I imagined the inconsolable torture of this mother, emotionally wrecked and permanently damaged, sitting alone at her fireplace, wrapped in her shawl, desperately hoping that the intensity of her prayers might reach her captive daughters, enveloping them in divine grace. I kept asking myself, what will become of those who are eventually released? Will they ever recapture that joy of life? The lightness of being flowing from these 3 girls? Probably not fully. Something inside of them has likely already died. Since October 7th, have any of you imagined your own child a slave in Gaza? Not even knowing whether they are alive or dead, and if alive, in what condition? Have you ever imagined your parents being grabbed in their living room, the coffee mug still steaming, and without the medicines that keep them alive? Or gunned down in a spasm of hate, their bullet-riddled bodies strewn unnaturally on the living room floor? I visited a small house in Kibbutz near Oz 6 weeks after the massacre. It reeked of death. The smoldering ruins were still liquefied over a month later. Some pasty, whitish, gooey substance clung to my shoes. I kept thinking that I was walking on this family's ashes, the remains of real human beings. And amidst waves of nausea, I felt I was walking on holy ground. In the corner of what was once the living room, I saw the remnants of a piano, the last remaining string of the keyboard still visible. Who played this piano? What music filled this now hauntingly hushed home? The dimensions of the evil visited upon our people surpasses my ability to put it into words. Language cannot contain my feelings. We assumed that this kind of medieval bloodlust was no longer possible in our era, and we lack the verbal skills to capture our emotions. The brutality saps our faith in humanity and our belief in human progress. How dark is the human soul? How remorseless the human heart? They turned human beings, the pinnacle of all creation, into things while they still lived. They were alive. They had souls. Such intense cruelty destroys both the victims and the perpetrators. The murderer, too, becomes a thing, a ruthless, pitiless, and merciless killing machine. It was a spasm of savagery, a pack of feral wolves ripping their prey, blood dripping from their teeth. They were proud of what they did. They filmed themselves. They boasted of their sadistic virility. One terrorist was recorded calling his parents from the phone of a Jewish woman he had just murdered. And in his delirium, he howled that he had killed 10 Jews already with his own hands. Your son killed Jews, he barked. Be proud of me, Dad. Mom, your son is a hero. I wish I was with you, she bade. The revelry continued in Gaza, where terrorists dragged severely abused hostages and presented them to an ecstatic population as the spoils of war. Sweets were handed out to all who passed by. And the ghoulish euphoria spread to the West. Social media pulsated exultantly, phones vibrated rapturously. Soon, streets and campuses erupted in jubilation, blaming the victims for their own victimhood. People and organizations normally so verbose and loquacious about all manner of human offense fell silent, or worse, celebrated the atrocities. Now, I want to be very clear. Nothing I have ever said or will ever say diminishes my intense sadness for the sufferings of Palestinian or Lebanese non-combatants. Their misery feeds my anguish. To ignore civilian deaths, even if inflicted in accordance with the laws of just war, to feel nothing, no compassion, empathy, sorrow, or lamentation for human despair is un-Jewish. If someone is compassionate towards others, say the rabbis, you can be sure that he is a descendant of our father Abraham. And if someone is not compassionate towards others, you can be sure that he is not a descendant of Abraham. If you do not recoil from the death of a child, the destruction of families, the dislocation and deprivation of innocent people, the carnage of war, something has died in you. You are emotionally hollow, empty, and numb. You've lost your soul. It's true that we underestimate the extent of Palestinian collaboration with Hamas. Thousands of Gazans poured into the kibbutzim, stealing whatever they could, and kidnapping Israelis they later sold to Hamas. Who built that tunnel system that is more extensive than the London Underground? Have you ever asked yourself how many people it took to construct and how much money, some of it yours, was paid to the workers who built this labyrinth of evil? Some 250 hostages were dragged to Gaza on October 7th, most of whom were held above ground in apartments. The 3 Israeli hostages freed in that daring special forces operation in the spring were held in the residence of a medical doctor in the midst of a sprawling civilian neighborhood. You ever asked yourself how many people were in on the secret? To this day, large numbers of Palestinians in Gaza, Lebanon, Jordan, and the West Bank support Hamas. Still, we cannot interrupt the flow of human sympathy towards those who have not taken up arms. Else we'd be left only with the residue of self-obsession, self-absorption, self-interest, and fear. And when that happens, when we no longer feel the warmth of human kindness, we are capable of practically anything. Ethicists and philosophers have taught for millennia that the basis and starting point for morality is to put yourself in another's shoes. What is hateful to you, do not do unto others, our sages demanded. The inability to empathize, to put yourself in another's place, to recognize and acknowledge the humanity of the other, is the root cause of social breakdown. And I confess to you that I've been struggling with my emotions since October 7th. I feel so violated, so angry at what these barbarians have done to us, that it's hard for me to find additional room in my heart for those whose government launched this war and who celebrated the massacres and who still hold dozens of Israelis hostages. I'm hurt by the moral equivocation of some people who have been my friends and allies in the struggle for social justice, the lack of empathy, sympathy, and moral propriety from our own kind, the most progressive and liberal of Americans, people and institutions in whose circles we travel and with whom we associate. It keeps the volcano inside of me constantly active. Those who whitewash, excuse, deny, or defend the barbarism, or shield the whitewashers, excusers, deniers, or defenders of the barbarism, exacerbate my bitterness. The dripping acid inside of me becomes a river of lava. If this describes you, fight that impulse. Do not succumb to moral miasma. Jews are described in our tradition as Rachmanim b'nei Rachmanim, compassionate ones, the children of the compassionate. With everything else you hold in your heart, make room for the suffering of the innocent. The second reason I couldn't turn away from the Israelis in the London cafe was due to the second surge of emotion I experienced. I felt love. It's crazy. I didn't even know them. I'd never seen them before, will never see them again. And the entire wordless interaction was about 20 minutes. Still, a wave of loving protectiveness for our people washed over me. Maybe it was a kind of corny, old-fashioned chivalry. It's not fashionable to say nowadays, but it was noticeable to me that there was no male, no father, no 6-foot, 16-year-old brother, just 4 females. Maybe the parents were separated. Maybe the father was in Israel or doing something else in the city. Maybe the mother just decided on a girls' weekend in London, leaving the fathers and brothers in Israel. I don't know. Whatever it was, I felt a wave of protective affection inside of me, and tenderness gushed out of my cracked heart, broken from a year of mourning. I'm a liberal. One of the central values of liberalism is that all human beings matter equally, irrespective of race, religion, ethnicity, background, or sexual orientation. What we share is more important than what divides. Humanity is our common lot. We emerged from the same clay, inhabit the same flesh, and are dissolved in the same dust. In this respect, Judaism too is liberalism. All were created by God, and therefore all have equal standing and equal worth in the sight of God. Go to the great city of Nineveh, God commanded Jonah, and urge it, the non-Israelites, towards social justice and righteousness. Will not the judge of all the earth do justice, Abraham pleads before God on behalf of the non-Israelite cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. Shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do, God ponders, given that I selected Abraham to teach his descendants to do what is just and right, and that all the families of the earth shall bless themselves through him. I am in covenant with all human beings. This is what Judaism teaches. But I feel the most intense love for my own family. My strongest affections are for my own people, nation, and community. It is the way of the world, wired into the very essence of human nature. It is not chauvinism to develop the strongest of all bonds with your own family. To the contrary, it's how we learn to develop bonds with other families. If you don't feel more love for your children than your neighbor's children or the children of strangers, you are emotionally damaged. That you feel this special attachment to those who are closest to you does not imply that you feel nothing towards others. That you spend more of your time with your own children does not imply that you have no responsibility for other people's children. Judaism does not discredit our loyalties to family, people, and nation. To the contrary, our tradition insists that the universal begins with the particular. I have grasped you by the hand and made you a covenant people, Isaiah preached, a light to the nations, opening eyes deprived of light. Ahavat Abriot, love for humankind, begins with Ahavat Yisrael, love for the Jewish people. As Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel wrote, for Jews, there can be no fellowship with God without the fellowship with the people Israel. Abandoning Israel, we desert God. Now say that again. Abandoning Israel, we desert God. Everything Jewish begins with Jewish peoplehood. Kol Yisrael arayvin ze bazeh. All Jews are responsible one for the other, the rabbis taught. If you do not feel this special bond with other Jews, you're emotionally damaged, Jewishly. Judaism absent Jewish peoplehood is not Judaism. It's something else. Tikkun olam, repair of the world. Ripped from the moorings of Klal Yisrael, the centrality of Jewish peoplehood is not Jewish universalism. It's just universalism. Amidst the turmoil, polarization, and anxieties of our times, do not abandon your affection, responsibility, and loyalty to our own people. Our destinies are tied one to the other. We have many different views. We believe many different things. We are a contentious, argumentative, strong-willed, opinionated family. But we are family that assumes the obligation and responsibility of love for each other. The weakening of these bonds is my central concern regarding the future of the American Jewish community. I worry about our young people. 2 generations of American Jews have been born with no lived experience of the desperation of the Jews to survive the 20th century. The pogroms, the Holocaust, the establishment of the tiny besieged state of Israel, the Six-Day War, the Yom Kippur War, they're all history to new generations, even if they know them at all. When lived experience becomes memory, and memory becomes history, there develops the tendency to observe Judaism rather than live it, to analyze rather than participate, to stand at arm's length rather than close embrace. To all of our young people, and I say this not only to you who are present, but anybody who might watch this at some point, I'll speak with you as bluntly as I speak with your parents. Consider it a gesture and a sign of my respect and affection for you. It's what I owe you. As you know, I love your generation. You are our future. The reason there are Jews in the world today is that the Jews of yesterday willed it and bequeathed Judaism to us. I feel blessed for the privilege of spending a few years in the sun, linking your generation with generations past in our eternal quest for meaning. Now, you go ahead and you disagree with me, your parents, the Jewish establishment, all you want. Our generation will soon be handing the torch to you anyway. And you will be the ones who decide what is best for our people. Sooner than you think. You'll be the rabbis, the Jewish professionals, the activist lay leaders, the congregants, the funders, the trustees, the politicians, the civil servants, the corporate executives, the entrepreneurs, the financial advisors, the medical doctors, the university professors and administrators, the senior accountants and attorneys. And the burden and the responsibility of Jewish decisions will rest squarely on your shoulders. Some of you might see things differently then. Accountability has a way of changing our perspectives. But either way, the decisions and the responsibility will be yours. As your teachers, educators, rabbis, and moral guides, know that we tried to instill in you a sense of justice, righteousness, virtue, honor, rectitude, honesty, and decency for all people. We are proud when your generation is active in the pursuance of these values. And if these ideals lead you to be critics of Israeli policies or the American Jewish community, so be it. Welcome to the club. Every Jew in one way or another is a critic. To mourn the loss of life, dislocation, and misery of Palestinian civilians is a virtue. To have different opinions about the nature and timing of the war aims or a ceasefire in Gaza is entirely legitimate and appropriate. What we did not intend is for your generation to turn your backs on our people. We wanted you to be Zionists. We did not intend that our emphasis on tikkun olam, social repair, would lead some Jews to join anti-Israel demonstrations. We did not intend for Jews to lead Passover seders in so-called liberated zones, liberated from Zionists that violate not only university policies, but threaten the safety of Jew students. Some of those protests contain anti-American sentiments as well. We did not intend to encourage or excuse Jews who burn American flags or support those who do. The supreme leader of Iran sent messages of support and thanks to student protesters. That tells you everything you need to know. While America often falls short of its ideals, still, our values and aspirations are far better than our enemies, and we are blessed to live in this country. We did not intend that criticism of Israeli policy lead to a detached indifference and a vacuous lack of compassion for the murdered, brutalized, sexually assaulted, and kidnapped of our own people. We did not intend that some young American Jews not even give a passing thought to the many thousands, tens of thousands of our people who have become refugees from their southern and northern homes. We did not intend to strip Jewish solidarity, empathy, responsibility, and mutuality from your Jewish identity, the identity of young American Jews, not only towards Israeli civilians, but soldiers your age, who exhibit astonishing courage and remarkable self-sacrifice, many of whom laid down their lives protecting our people in feats of enormous heroism. Israeli Gen Zs have much to teach their counterparts in the West. What a magnificent generation of young Israelis. We thought that we were sensitizing young Jews to the Jewish obligation of social repair. We thought that we were conveying the principles of Jewish universalism. We thought we were teaching Gmilut Chasadim, acts of loving kindness. We thought we were instilling our yearnings for peace and justice and righteousness and truth, shalom, emet, tzedek, mishpat. We thought we were emphasizing the equal dignity of all human beings, each created b'tselem Elohim, in the image of God. We did not expect the Jewish spirit to dribble away while we thought we were passing it on. We hope to do better in years to come. and have already taken steps at our synagogue to address what we think, in retrospect, were flaws in our educational approach. Of course, it goes without saying that Judaism cannot be subcontracted to others. And what parents and families do in their own families will influence younger Jews the most. We can only build on what happens at home. We cannot create something out of nothing. If there's no Jewish spark, there can be no flame, and no passing of the Jewish torch because there's no flame. At the beginning of the book of Exodus, before Moses was called to leadership, the Torah describes the prince of Egypt's first encounter with Hebrew slaves. Vayigdal Moshe, and Moses grew up. Vayetze elechav, and he went out unto his brethren. Vaya'ar besivlotam, and he saw their suffering. The preeminent commentator Rashi asks, if he went out to his brethren, do we also need to be told that he saw their suffering? Since he had eyes, obviously he saw their suffering. Rashi responds, he directed his heart and eyes towards them so that he would suffer along with them. To all of us, including young adults, direct your hearts and your eyes towards your own people. If they rejoice, rejoice with them. And if they are suffering, suffer with them. Mourn with them. Support them. Help them. Free them. Redeem them. I met Reut from Kibbutz Reim 6 weeks after October 7th. She's a tall, striking, and strong-willed woman of controlled passions. She's cool in heat, like simmering ice. She looks you straight in the eye. A look that is both cotton and steel. She flew in from Eilat, where she and her 3 children were temporarily housed, in order to meet me in Tel Aviv. She described herself as a refugee. She wanted to tell me, and through me, American Jews, what happened to her family on that dreadful day. You can view our conversation on the synagogue website. Reut's 3 children were sleeping peacefully as the sun rose on that perfect, cloudless Shabbat of Simchat Torah. Reut's older daughter, 13-year-old Leah, was staying at a friend's house at a neighboring kibbutz, while 10-year-old Daria and their 8-year-old brother Lavi were with their father Dvir and his partner Stav at kibbutz Reim. Reut was weekending in a different part of Israel. As sirens shrieked throughout the country, Leah, the eldest, texted her mother that there was shooting in the kibbutz and she couldn't speak because terrorists were right outside the house. I was in complete shock, Reut told me. Never entered anyone's mind that there would be terrorists walking around our communities. I sent Leah's text to Dvir. Dvir responded that there was heavy shooting at kibbutz Reim as well. A few minutes later, Reut received a text from Daria. Mommy, Daddy is dead. Stav too. Help. When I got this message, I called Daria immediately, Reut told me. She was under the blanket in her bedroom with Lavi, and she described what happened. We heard terrorists outside, Mommy. Dvir had grabbed an axe to protect his family. When the murderers broke through the door, After wounding one of them, he was killed, his body riddled with bullets. He fell backwards into the small bathroom. They shot Stav, too, who tried to protect the children. She was found lying near Dvir, immersed in a bathtub of blood. Then the terrorists entered the bedroom, where Daria and Levi were hiding under the blanket. They removed the covers, saw the children, but for some inexplicable reason, stopped the killing spree. Sometimes our fate hangs on such a slender thread. It was one or two cases of children surviving the massacre, Reut told me, and mine were among them. For 3 hours nonstop, Reut spoke with her 10-year-old daughter, Daria, as battles raged and bullets shrieked outside their home. I didn't want her to panic. I wanted to reassure her. There was a moment when Daria thought that the terrorists were coming into their home again. I recorded all these hours, Reut told me, because I thought that this might be the last time I will ever be able to speak with Daria, and I wanted to remember her. I wanted to preserve her voice, her spirit, her soul. Daria and Levi were saved, first by a courageous neighbor who climbed into their house, stayed with them for 9 hours, and finally escaped with the kids to his home across the way. And second, these children and many others are alive today because of the most astonishing acts of heroism of the civil defense personnel of the kibbutzim and the soldiers of the IDF. Reut showed me the film of her reuniting with Daria and Levi the next day. It's on our website. The emotions are indescribable. How do you put a miracle into words? We wanted to live together with our Gazan neighbors, Reut told me. We didn't understand that Hamas is like ISIS. They had plans. They knew exactly where we lived. Gazans employed by our kibbutz and many other border villages had permits to enter Israel. We knew some of them. They were the ones who built our safe rooms. They gave all the information to Hamas. So when Hamas entered the kibbutz, they knew exactly what they were looking for. They had maps of the schools and homes of the people they wanted from the military or security apparatus. These were innocent people who simply wanted to live in peace. I asked Reut. Her name in Hebrew means friendship, and the name of her kibbutz means friends. I asked her whether she felt Israelis and Gazans could ever reconcile, expecting her to reject that proposition emphatically a mere 6 weeks after the massacres. She responded, "I still believe it's possible to live in peace with them after Hamas is eliminated and the hostages are returned." "Do you expect to go back to the kibbutz?" I asked Reut. "Of course," she responded. "It's our home. I don't want to leave our home. I want to live in my home in peace and quiet. It was paradise on the kibbutz." I saw Reut again in March of this year during our synagogue delegation to Israel. I asked her whether she would agree to meet us at her kibbutz, at Kibbutz Reim, and convey her story to us in person to our 20-some congregants. A hero from the civil defense team joined us and walked us through the minute-by-minute, desperate hours of horrendous battles. As we were listening to him, Hamas fired rockets above our heads. No one in our delegation flinched. Strange how people adjust. We ended our visit at Reut's home, place where it all began. She invited us into her small, devastated house. We walked through the bathroom where Dvir and Stav heroically died, trying to protect Daria and Levi. We walked into the bedroom where Daria spoke with her mother for 3 straight hours. But what tore us apart were snippets of the recording that Reut played of her 3-hour conversation with Daria. You could hear, you could sense, you could feel that primal and heavenly presence that is the nature of motherhood, the fierceness of a lion, and the gentleness of an angel. Stay calm, Daria. It'll be okay. Mommy is with you. I'm not going to leave you. As the recording played, the hero security guard broke down in tears. He was sobbing. And there wasn't a dry eye in our group. Reut showed me where she plans to rebuild her home. She showed me how the kibbutz intends to recover. She pointed out where the Sukkot celebrations were held before October 7th. And I said to her, when you rebuild, when the community rededicates the kibbutz, I will return here to rejoice with you. I'll come on Sukkot when you construct the sukkah, and if you secular kibbutzniks want, I'll even recite a few prayers. And together with you, celebrate the resilient determination and the indomitable spirit of our people that you so poignantly embody. Song will return to this place. The piano will be restrung. Happiness, joy, thanksgiving, and the sound of music will envelop the land. And as I bid her farewell, I said to Reut, when I return, I'm not coming alone. I will bring members, supporters, and friends of the Stephen Wise Free Synagogue with me. We will celebrate together, brothers and sisters, a family in pain, and yet determined again to emerge from the ashes and thrive anew. Am Yisrael Chai. Say it with me, like you mean it. Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai ad Belidai. The people of Israel lives now and forevermore.